Another incredible claim by Dan, but one that would be revealed through another piece of technology within the facility called Looking Glass. In the summer of 2007, Dan was inducted into a classified intelligence project that required 6 months of total isolation from friends and family. And by December, he met with UFO investigators Kerry Cassidy and Bill Ryan, speaking with them for over 5 hours. During the conversation, he revealed that the project involved a device known as Looking Glass technology capable of viewing probable future events. The project's objective was to determine which of these futures was most likely to unfold. The agreement of the outcome was Timeline 1, Variation 83, which, according to projections, pointed to a future marked by the election of Hillary Clinton, a massive financial collapse, and a catastrophic event that would ultimately lead to the division of humanity into 2 distinct life forms. Dan further explained that world leaders had begun using Looking Glass as a kind of script, taking preemptive actions in an attempt to steer or nudge events away from the projected future. The Looking Glass device was reverse engineered from a transport system of ancient Sumerian origin, combined with shared extraterrestrial technology. Operated in pairs, one of which was located elsewhere on the Nevada test site, it consisted of a large toroidal chamber generating an electromagnetic field, a barrel filled with liquid argon gas, focusing rings, and an energy projection unit. When activated, the device opened a window into quantum probabilities, allowing users to see and hear into alternate timelines. However, because these timelines often converge, a computer system was required to dephase the signals for viewing specific moments. Now, the next part of this chapter, and the final chapter here, is going to take a turn into something that happened more contemporarily with me and this case. And it involved how I decided to reach out and actually talk to Dan. So one core belief that guided my research was that consistent patterns often reveal hidden truths. The Dan Burisch story is rich with such patterns, found in archived videos, audio interviews, legacy PDFs, blog posts, and Hamilton's book. Certain terms kept surfacing, and one in particular stood out: the golden thread. This phrase appeared frequently enough in Dan's interviews to warrant deeper investigation. So in 2012, it led me to a little-known online forum, one that not only confirmed Dan was still alive, but suggested he was active at a high level within an advanced, majestic group. My engagement there eventually led to a phone call with Dan in 2018, lasting an hour and a half. The forum looked like something out of a different era, an old-school platform reminiscent of what I used to use in the late 80s. At first, the content made no sense to me. The dialogue was cryptic, fragmented, but over time it pulled me in. I found myself checking in daily, eventually contributing my own insights, sometimes multiple times a day, from 2013 to 2018. This wasn't your typical message board. It didn't follow the usual pattern of scattered topics and open discussion. Instead, it read like a mix of military-coded operational chatter and private exchanges between a tightly knit group, roughly 10 to 15 individuals. At the center were Dan and his longtime colleague Marcy, formerly B.J. Wolf, now appearing to lead the group. Dan was being referred to by a new title, MJ1. The messages seemed intentionally curated, posted for public viewing, but with layers of meaning. I couldn't help but ask, had Dan taken over John McConnell's role? Was this some kind of authorized public interface for a new majestic? And if so, how was this even allowed? What I was reading wasn't theoretical. It felt operational. Orders were issued. Missions were referenced. This was just one example of the kind of communication I was observing on the forum. And beyond Dan and Marcy, it became clear this was a coordinated team with defined roles, including cybersecurity personnel and armed security forces. The posts hinted at access to private aircraft and helicopters used to transport Dan globally, allegedly for meetings with foreign dignitaries. At least once a month, the group announced internal gatherings for formal meetings between Majestic members. What followed were what appeared to be live transcriptions of those sessions, shared publicly as meeting minutes, and I archived every one of them. Some messages were surprisingly direct, casting Dan in a role of apparent geopolitical significance. He and Marcy were often referred to as D and M, reinforcing their central authority within the group. The forum also limited public interaction. Users could submit questions to Dan, and he often responded quickly. However, the community was small and tightly controlled. Few ever questioned Dan's past claims, and those who did were often met with condescension or banned outright. Dissent wasn't just unwelcomed, it was swiftly removed. To add to the mystery of the point and purpose of the website was that it was visited by very few people from the outside. So who was it targeted for? In June 2016, a forum post went out indicating a small number of the public forum members may join Dan in setting up an experiment at Frenchman Mountain outside of Las Vegas and witnessing the results of the experiment. The operation was entitled Operation Redstone and was an important component of his Lotus research that he spoke at Caltech about. But because this post was a little unclear, I reached out on the general forum with the following question. May I request a summary of this project for fuller sense of its implication? I went back and couldn't get a full picture about what this is for general public clarity. A representative of Dan's wrote back. An interesting thing. I told Dan about your post. He said he'd be happy to provide more information after his return, and then wanted to know if you, as a member of the public, were considering attending Operation Redstone in southern Nevada next February once the satellite can be tasked. He said, if so, cool, just let me know when possibly, or after I present more information, or whatever. Marcy and I would just need to know, so as soon as possible to add to the list of logistics. No hurry, no pressure, have fun. One member will be my main assistant, but that spot is locked in, meaning filled. Attending is still possible? Hey, either way, we're fully demanding to have a blast of a good time out there. Soon after, I received a private message. Quote, Dan has you in mind for something different. He would like to start with a phone call with you upon his return. We will provide the phone number, unquote. Curious, I compared it to numbers previously posted on the forum. Each one was identical except for the last digit. My call with Dan was scheduled for Sunday, February 25th, 2018 at 9 a.m. During the 90-minute call, Dan assessed whether I could be trusted as an advisor for his Lotus research. He expressed comfort speaking with me and mentioned a future in-person meeting at a Southern California coastal residence. He said he'd begin sending data and wanted someone from the outside of sciences to grasp its importance and weigh in, especially with plans to submit it to the Library of Congress. So he wanted my input on his experiments. I created a secure Proton Mail account, and over the next few weeks, he sent microscope photos, data screenshots, and a video titled with my name, showing multicolored light patterns. But no context was ever given, despite my repeated requests. Eventually, contact stopped. I later received a final message from one of Dan's operatives, questioning my intentions and listing names from my social media accounts they found suspicious. I explained that following someone doesn't imply affiliation, but it wasn't enough. I was cut off. Dan, the team, my IP address, everything blocked. Dan's claims are entered into Congressional Record last year in 2024. I discovered that journalist Michael Schellenberger included Dan's case in his submission into Record after his November 13th House Oversight Committee hearing on unidentified anomalous phenomenon. Dan's name is noted 9 times in the subcommittee documentation, including another person, Henry Deacon, who vouched for the veracity of Dan's claims. Michael was there primarily to give testimony about the recently leaked Immaculate Constellation program, but within this submitted documentation were others who worked on programs of note. Dan's name is noted 9 times in the submitted documentation, and here's a screenshot. Here's some conclusions we can draw now. After reviewing key pieces of evidence, I consulted with veteran researchers, investigators, and insiders familiar with Dan's story. I then shared my findings with a number of prominent investigators and journalists in the field, including Linda Howe, Paola Harris, Richard Doty, Bill Ryan, Michael Schratt, and also the late Mark McCandlish. Their collective input, backed by extensive documentation, strongly supports the credibility of Dan Burisch's account. The level of corroboration is striking. This case should have always had the serious attention deserved. But let's review what we can confidently know. From early on, Dan had prodigy-level acuity in the sciences. His expertise is well documented, and detailed records reflect this. Some of the UAP field's best investigators believed his accounts. Affidavits were formally executed documenting his truth. In video interviews, he appears emotionally authentic in telling his story. The Caltech speaking engagement adds to his credibility. Tom Mack's letter unquestionably connects Dan to an alien study program at Area 51. But the implications are huge. Extraterrestrial treaties exist and influence choices done on our behalf without our knowledge. A significant catastrophe may unfold in the near future and split the evolution of mankind's future. Groups like the former Majestic 12 are aware of this future and operate quietly in the shadows, sometimes clashing with the agendas of other deep state factions. Reality and consciousness are far beyond what we perceive. Multiple timelines and time travel are real. Others like Dan likely exist, some silenced, others hidden from contact. And this is but a snapshot of some critical milestones of Dan's story that I've been designing and compiling over the years. Finally, after finding out my good friend Bill passed in 2014, as a kind of conclusion, Bill wrote the following about the Dan Burisch case. Quote, "After all that I've heard and after piecing together over 20 different amazing testimonies, I think I finally understand the reason for the cover-up. It is a story that spans eons of time and devolves on who we are and who they are. We are all related, and DNA is the gem of the cosmos. There is so much that now makes sense. Once I had threaded it all together, that I am amazed at the feel of it, the truth of it, and the miracle of space, time, and life. The one thing I have heard time and again is that our time is short, that time is running out, that big changes are ahead, and that the world may never be the same again. Only when I check this further will I report on it. This is not just another UFO story. This is the cosmic code. It is there for all of us to intelligently decipher."